I have 9:03, so I'm going to call the Selma City Council special meeting for November 9th to order. Located at the Selma City Council Chambers in Selma, California, also via teleconference phone number 1301-715-8592, meeting ID 889-7079-0269 with the password 1109. With that, I'll have to read our official statement. On March 4th, 2020, Governor Newsom proclaimed a state of emergency in California as a result of the threat of COVID-19. On March 17, 2020, Governor Newsom issued Executive Order N-2920, which allows local legislative bodies to hold public meetings via teleconferencing and to make the public meetings accessible telephonically or otherwise electronically to all members of the public seeking to observe and address the local legislative body. Pursuant to Executive Order N-2920, please be advised that some or all of Selma City Council will participate in meetings via teleconference. Public participation pursuant to Executive Order N-2920 and given the current health concerns, members of the public can access meetings streamed live on our YouTube page. Members of the public cannot attend the meeting in person. In lieu of attendance at the meeting, the public can provide public comments verbally for the City Council's consideration by calling in on the number posted on our agenda. Staff will unmute the public during the public comment portion of the meeting. Alternatively, the public can send correspondence to the City Council regarding agenda items by emailing publiccomment@cityofselma.com by 8 a.m. of the day of the meeting with the subject line Selma City Council meeting correspondent followed by the agenda item, or City of Selma non-agenda item. All correspondence that does not relate to a specific item on the agenda will be made part of the official record of this meeting, and it will be referred to the city manager or other staff for any appropriate action or attention. Correspondence that does relate to a specific item on the agenda will be addressed by the appropriate at the appropriate during consideration of the agenda item which it relates to. Contact the city clerk with any questions by phone at City Hall at 559-891-2200, extension 3104, or by emailing the address referenced above, which is publiccomment@cityofselma.com. Okay, with that, we'll go into roll call.
Councilmember Avalos?
Here.
Councilmember Robertson?
Here.
Councilmember Trujillo?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Guerra?
Here.
Mayor Franco?
Here. Okay, potential conflict of interest. Any council member who has a potential conflict of interest may now identify the item and recuse himself from discussing or voting on the matter. Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to oral communications. Notice to the public, during public comments, if you wish to address the City Council under Government Code Section 54954-3A, you may only address the City Council concerning any item which has been described in the notice for the special meetings. Members of the public shall limit the remarks to 3 minutes. Is there anyone wishing to speak, City Clerk?
I have no one on the line and I have no emails. Thank you, Mayor Franco.
Okay. All right, and then we'll move on to regular business. Consideration and necessary action on urgency ordinance amending subparagraph 24 of subdivision A of section 2, chapter 8 of title 11 of subdivision A of section 3 of chapter 8 of title 11 of the municipal code pending completion and study and evaluation of appropriate regulation of thrift stores and other establishments dealing in used goods. So I don't know if this is a Neil matter or a Teresa matter.
I will handle it, Mr. Mayor, if that's okay.
That's fine.
Mayor, members of the council, what you have before you is the urgency ordinance we discussed on November 2nd. And essentially it amends in the interim while you consider adoption of a permanent ordinance to this effect. two sections of Title 8 of Chapter 8 of Title 11, which is a zoning ordinance to eliminate the requirement of holding nonprofit corporate status and a CUP for any business that wants to operate as a thrift store or other form of store like an antique store, consignment store, that sort of thing, that deals in used goods. So this would allow the thrift store that was proposed to go into where the old Save Mart used to be, actually the laundromat next to it at that location, and they've already stocked their shelves and are prepared to open. You're allowed to adopt an urgency ordinance that is a zoning ordinance under a particular provision of the government code, simply by virtue of the fact that it is a zoning ordinance and you are undertaking an evaluation of whether you want to change that zoning ordinance to allow for a particular use or to prohibit a particular use in the interest of the city. This requires a 4/5 affirmative vote of the council. If you adopt this, it is only effective for 45 days. So we are publishing, should you adopt it, we will publish in the Selma Enterprise this coming week a public hearing notice for an extension of this urgency ordinance, and you're allowed to extend it at that time by 10 months and 15 days. That is the sum and substance of the urgency ordinance. We received a letter from the person who spoke on behalf of the persons operating this thrift store, who I understand to be non-English speakers. And she is essentially saying that she wants you to retain the nonprofit corporate status requirement for thrift shops, and that she wants you to waive the fees for the CUP, and is in fact not asking for a change of the ordinance at all. Frankly, I don't believe that this particular business could qualify as a 501c3 nonprofit corporation, because as I understand their business model, they are in business to make money. And unless they were out there selling these items and retaining a very small administrative fee, they would be required to turn over their net profits to some charitable use, like funding a soccer league or what have you. And I don't believe that they are doing that. I also don't believe that it's a very good idea to be waiving the fees for a CUP, which are well established and which this council has steadfastly adhered to for those businesses that require a CUP. So I frankly take the letter that was sent as not fully understanding what's involved in obtaining nonprofit status on behalf of this business. And so I would propose that you adopt the urgency ordinance. If they're serious about obtaining nonprofit status, we will have this on your agenda for December 7th for the possible extension of it for the 10 months and 15 days. and they can make their case at that time.
Neil, also by adopting this ordinance, doesn't this bring other businesses into compliance as well? Or is just you?
It does. You have two, I believe, thrift stores already operating in the city of Selma. We don't really know when they came into operation, but it's a desirable thing to treat similarly situated business enterprises in the same way. And those two that were established kind of came in under the radar, so to speak. We didn't notice them until this one made its application for the business license. And we noticed that two others had been established already. So since they're already out there, those bring those businesses into compliance with your zoning ordinances.
Did they have to pay the CUP, the previous two?
They did not, because we didn't catch them. And you would have a very difficult time going back and saying, well, you can't operate now after you've allowed them to operate.
Right.
Because they gain some vested rights just by going out there and conducting business without being charged with having violated your ordinances.
So this emergency ordinance doesn't remove the requirement for a $5,000 conditional use permit?
It does not. It does not. If a conditional use permit is required for a particular business, that's our fee.
Can we somehow write that in, that we would not be requiring a $5,000 fee for thrift stores in the future? Which seems like a pretty steep fee for a business of this
under
type.
the urgency ordinance, there is no CUP requirement for a thrift store
Okay.
or a similar store.
So it just goes away.
So it just goes away. But it doesn't touch your CUP requirement. You have CUP requirements for a variety of different businesses for a variety of reasons. And the fee is the fee, and it's the same for all of them. It's $5,000, and that is based upon the cost to the city of processing that conditional use permit.
But since it goes away, anybody applying now and probably for the next 12 months, if the council approves the extension, the 1 year while the city has time to study this issue, the CUP wouldn't apply. If anyone wanted to open a thrift store in Selma during this 12-month emergency ordinance period, they wouldn't have to pay the $5,000.
That is correct.
So they would fall into that category, since they are technically they're opening a thrift store today or tomorrow. They would fall under the emergency ordinance, and therefore they wouldn't owe that $5,000 CUP. So number two is irrelevant.
Yeah.
That is correct. You're effectively retroactively validating those two business operations that are already out there.
And this one.
And this one.
Lala's. Okay.
Okay.
Well, the difference here is that the two that are already operating actually have business license that were issued to them. I know for sure one of them was in 2006. I'm not sure the date on the other one. Maybe Teresa or Raina has that information, but those two were issued business license in the past. So we would look at them as existing non-conforming. Lala's does not have a business license. We never issued them a business license. We never gave them approval to operate their business.
The other one was 2015.
Thank you.
So they'd be coming in under emergency ordinance.
Well, so the interesting point is that we have a questionnaire that businesses have to fill out. And on that questionnaire, it doesn't actually ask if they're selling any used goods. So if a business came in and wrote their business name down and then filled out the questionnaire, if the planner or anyone else was looking at it, they wouldn't even know, unless they put the word thrift in the name of the store, that it was a thrift store. So it's possible that those business licenses were issued with the assumption that it was just a retail store, which is an allowed use. I also wanted to point out that all uses in our code are allowed by three options. The first one is permitted by right. The second one is with an administrative approval. And the third is by conditional use permit. So the best way to remedy this, which you the council will decide based on staff's presentation. The council can decide whether you'd like to make thrift stores, antique stores, things such as that, by right use, which would not result in any fee, an administrative fee, which allows us to put conditions on the project, and the fee is cheaper. It's around $2,100, I believe, or the CUP, which is a public hearing, which allows for the planning commission approval and a notice to all surrounding property owners within 300 feet. So in this case, the emergency ordinance gets rid of all of that for the time being while we work on our code updates.
Yeah.
Do we need to decide on what kind of code we want to see, or will we vote in 12 months or on the three options when that comes before council?
We expect to have that coming before council on the 16th.
Okay.
So you can take a look at a couple of different options. One of which might be the administrative CUP, one of which would be similar to the urgency ordinance you have before you. There's one important thing you should notice about the urgency ordinance, and that is it effectively eliminates what I believe to be what the council originally found to be objectionable about these types of operations, and that is the out-of-store drop-off for things like Goodwill and Salvation Army, which tend to have a real tendency to become nuisances and eyesores and that sort of thing. If you take or receive any form of used goods, you have to receive them within your store.
Right.
We do not allow drop-off donations at the front door of the store and a drop-off box or anything like that.
Yeah.
Remember we had that problem. Remember that?
Yep.
Remember we had to move those blue containers.
Those boxes. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And it was a different model. Thrift stores had a different model in '76 when a lot of, organizations like hospitals or animal shelters or things like that, needed something to raise money, and they used these stores, for people who donated clothes and things to them to make some money. So you can understand where the model came from. Now, as city attorney alluded to earlier, they're for profit. This is a big business. Thrift stores are a big business now. It's just a different model now.
And there's a lot of them out there. You just drive through downtown Clovis, you'll see tons of them.
Requiring them to be a nonprofit is probably an anachronism. I don't think I think that's gone. That time has come and gone. But the city could look at limiting the number of them, per capita population.
You could put
Regulate
a numeric limit on it
that.
by reference just to an abstract number or a per capita.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Like figure out what we have right now and see if that's representative and put that in the ordinance. That would effectively limit and make it a zero sum. So no more thrift stores can come in until our population grows.
Well, it's,
If we do it,
create that
per
balance.
1,000
I'm going to
heads,
create that balance.
stores per
Scott.
1,000.
That way you create that balance in the businesses. Yeah. And then
Kind of like
and then
liquor stores.
you protect the interests
there's
of
only
the
a certain
businesses.
number that you have, and I'm certainly not comparing the two.
No.
They're different, definitely different types and categories. But there is that concern, which Ms. Gallegos referenced in her letter. It may be a valid concern that we don't want to be the thrift store capital of South County.
That's correct. And
So Neil, I have a question for you.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
So right now we are just approving the emergency ordinance, and we're going to have our staff go and review, give us proposals as to what's best, and we'll be able to make that in the future. Correct?
That is correct.
Okay. So, and the staff will probably go back and see what other cities are doing, and maybe we could look. I'm pretty sure they've tackled this issue also. Correct? Or should be.
You would assume so, because you see a lot of thrift stores both in Fresno and in Clovis. I'm sure in other stores, other cities around there, they exist as well.
Yeah, I know Madera requires a CUP, but does not require that it be a nonprofit. So that's another decision we need to make. But it sounds like we have at least one opinion on that, whether it be nonprofit or not.
Mhm.
Yeah, maybe find out what the other cities are doing. That's a good point, for when it's presented at the next council meeting. So we can see what the other cities are doing as a benchmark and then look at our options in terms of conditioning. Just approving it may not be the best course of action, just letting any thrift store come in, but maybe conditioning it.
Yeah, Lindsay allows it by right. City of Madera requires a CUP, but neither one differentiate whether it's a nonprofit business or not.
It seems like a relic of the past.
Another thing we might want to look at is what zones you want to allow these in, because as of now, it would be the direction, because it's in the C1, it would be applicable to any commercial zone and any industrial zone in the city. So that might be another thing. So I guess it's 3 decisions, whether we want it to be nonprofit or not, whether we want it to, be allowed administrative or CUP, and then also where.
Mm.
Makes sense. Does 2 weeks give staff, does 1 week give staff enough time to do this? Get all this together? We're talking about this at the next
Maybe,
meeting,
maybe
right?
not. So
2
we'll
weeks.
probably report back to you.
About 2
December.
weeks.
We'll certainly get started now.
Okay.
Looking at what's out there and what we can best do to control these things to the extent they need to be controlled. But either way, we will definitely have a report for you at your next meeting on where this is headed,
Mhm.
what options we're looking at. And we will also have the public hearing on the extension of the urgency ordinance for a period of 10 months and 15 days.
That has to be on the next meeting agenda, or
Correct.
at least December.
Simply because you typically don't have meetings during the month of December. And when you initially enact this, it's only good for 45 days.
Got it. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, if there's any questions, City Clerk, is there all open to the public? Is there anybody has called in or emailed since our discussion began?
I do not have any callers, nor do I have any emails, Mayor Franco.
Okay, then I will close public comment and bring it back, and we can continue the
I'll make a
discussion, or
motion
we
to
can get a
adopt the
motion.
emergency ordinance.
I'll second it.
Okay, roll call, please.
Councilmember Robertson,
Yes.
Councilmember Avalos,
Yes.
Councilmember Trujillo,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Guerra,
Yes.
Mayor Franco.
Yes. And with that, we'll adjourn the meeting. Everybody have a great Monday. We'll see you in a couple weeks. All right.